Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm coming at you with another AMA, rather late because I took a break on Sunday and I'm trying to catch up with everything. It's tricky when you are trying to maintain a schedule, but let's just get to it. If you want to join the conversation, join us on Discord, join us on the Patreon. If you want to have a question that really wants to be answered, because I get asked many questions, I have to pick and choose. I don't want these videos to be 2 hours long. And you can also join the YamatoCannon subreddit, where there is not enough discussion. I want more discussion, because I'm checking in daily, and this is the best place to reach me. First question, NL Snuggle, what is your opinion on chants? EU and NA chants are so boring compared to European football chants. I think the fan clubs are way more established in football, and I think the organizations need to put more emphasis into establishing fan clubs and bringing them to venues, because usually this is how things get started. There needs to be like an employee that is in charge of a fan club that creates this environment for people, and I think this is something that esports has thoroughly missed, and I think there's a lot of room to explore when it comes to esports and the fandom in general, and filling up a venue with fans that are coordinated. There is usually, you need some kind of a community coordinator that is in charge of a group, and usually the way I understand it is that this is someone that gets paid by the organization because it looks good, right? It's good for the organization, and it's also good for esports. Zandred Reddit, not really lore related, more like prediction for the meta, and your thoughts on that. Since Corki got a buff on package on 10.3, do you think teams will prioritize him more? So, I'm not gonna read this whole paragraph, because I have a life. I think the buff on package is pretty cool. Like, I've been experimenting with Corki on stream. I even played the top into Ornn one game, but that Ornn was terrible, so it doesn't really show us anything. But all in all, I think Corki is fine. The buff is kind of odd because the buffs have been increasing the strength of Corki during times he's already strong. Like, he was already really strong during package, already strong level 16, and these are the last buffs that we saw to Corki. And as long as that's the case, it kind of leaves him in a spot where he still has the same weaknesses. Now with Klepto gone, Klepto was a big deal. The crit item changes was a bit positive for Corki, but not that big of a deal. But I think Corki definitely has room to be played in the meta, especially when, you're fine with giving up mid-prio, and, Corki is so weak early and loses against most meta mid laners, and you have to give up, and sometimes you have to buy Hex Drinker to even survive. And then you can fight on your package timings, because, you get package at 8 minutes, a refill spawns at 8 minutes. There is a lot of things to explore in terms of just coordinated power, right? Corki has a clear window of power, clear window of weakness. Maybe there's something to explore. I think Corki is going to show up in a couple of games, right? Demigoose Best Boy asks, is LPL going to suffer now that it got delayed? Will EU or Korea take over? I don't know. It's weird because I don't know what the situation they're in, but at the same time, a lot of players have been urged not to leave their house. What do you do when you don't leave your house? You play. Maybe they're gonna be better than ever because all they do is screaming and solo queuing all day. Maybe the aspect of life is just completely gone from them, and they're going to come out of their chambers just Super Saiyan. I'm just kidding. I don't know. I don't know the situation, and I don't want to speculate. Obviously, not having competition and after being forced to ram like all games into one is going to be super tricky. I don't know how they're going to solve it. Either way, I wouldn't count out LPL that easily. LPL have the best individual players, and all of the weaknesses of the past LPL are honestly slowly disappearing. I'm really curious about the future in terms of the organizations, in terms of the coaching staffs and the new coaches that are coming in, the switch role. We had Mata. I think LPL is very dangerous, and I don't think we can ever count them out. We'll just have to see. Maybe this makes them better. Who knows? So honestly, I made the mistake of saying that you guys should ask me anything about the lore, but I don't know anything about the lore. So like, There is a specific trait that a person must have to be able to see Yordles the way they really look. Like, what is it? Says Yasin Bugera. No idea, man. Alcohol? No clue. No clue. Untouched Spaghetti asks, after playing a lot of games on Soraka top, the moment I touched on the champion, I realized that my lane was worse, but my team fighting was on point. Won all the games. Does this mean that the way you play Soraka top is one of the reasons she's OP and not the champion itself? Well, it does open the conversation of how you can approach a weak side of the map. Sona also opened that conversation. If you are giving up top side and you're winning bottom and mid for it, then it's definitely worth it, right? Giving up top side, let's say they're hitting the turret, let's say you're in a situation where you are playing a weak side, most of the time you're not going to be able to stay under the turret. We've seen GPs and competitive get dove over and over, and they're happy with it because they have impact with their ult, right? They get assists and they impact the map somehow. I think it has definitely opened the mind for people of approaching weak side in a completely different matter. So I think that's cool. Maybe we'll see a Braum top into Ornn, and he's just gonna farm and he's gonna fall behind and he's not gonna give a shit, and then, you know, he's gonna just Braum shield Ornn, and then he's gonna walk around with his team and then roam at level 6 and not give a shit. This could definitely happen. I wouldn't be surprised if it does. And I think this entire entity has opened up that mindset for everyone. I don't know if Soraka improves your team fighting per se, but I guess you have to have some level of awareness to get good ults off, and maybe this is what is helping you and your team fights. Jeremy asks, is NA going to make it out of groups this year? Yes. C9 will make it out of groups, and that's it. The usual. Diamond Phoenix asks, why are some picks like Ryze, LeBlanc, Gragas, or overall Akali that has such a big difference win rate and play between pro play and normal play? I can't understand why the difference is so big. Thanks for answering. So with your example, Ryze, very, very high skill cap, very difficult to win games with because it requires split pushing most of the time. Ryze is not the best team fighter, he's more of a split pusher, and it's difficult to find yourself in positions where you're allowed to split push. LeBlanc as a champion requires 1v2 coordination because the strength of LeBlanc is that she sets up ganks for her jungler. So once again, you rely on your teammates. Gragas as a jungler is very good and competitive because he has no clear weakness. The weakness he has in solo queue is that he's too slow and he can't gank too heavy, while in comparison to, for example, like a Shaco or a Rengar or any other solo queue jungle that you might compare it to, these just outpace like an Echo, right? You just want to have good ganks, heavy ganks, go, 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 a lot of carry potential. If you get gold, you're going to be a monster. Warwick, you can snowball really, really hard with these champions. With Gragas, snowballing is possible, but it's not quite as powerful. Akali in pro play, the big difference here is the fact that you can flex pick it in pro play, you can put it mid lane, you can put it top lane, and in solo queue this matters less as well. And in solo queue, some of the champions that get played in solo queue are good into Akali. That is the issue. You know, for example, Darius, maybe the matchup is not the worst for Akali, but my point is, you know, someone can lock in Garen just to counter your Akali, and those picks that are quite cheesy might be played in solo queue, but will most likely not be picked in pro play because you can deal with them as a team, and the flex option is there, right? So there's, depending, it's all about, you know, most of the time it's about team play and snowball ability, and all of the champions you mentioned require most of the time team play, draft play, or really, really high skill ceiling, you know? Because Akali is a difficult champion no matter what people want to say about it. In order to do full combos with passive and being able to you know, execute it properly without missing damage, it requires some semblance of skill. It's me. At what point of its life do you think League is? Beginning, middle, end? Moreover, is LoL Esports necessarily at the same point? And also, what do you think the next big esports games will be? I am really hyped for Project A, the shooter Riot games. I think this one is going to blow up and really, really, you know, take a lot of space within the genre. In regards to points of his life for League, I feel like it's in the middle. I think the end is when the player base becomes smaller and we're getting really hard carried by China. So as long as that's the case, God bless. Let's make money. Noah asks, any sleeper OP picks for mid lane? I gotta grind up to plat again somehow. Just pick Silas. Play Silas. Silas is fun. I don't think people on Platinum know how to play against Silas. Aretes asks, how many Keck W would you give Forgiven? I would give him 5 out of 5 Keck Ws. It's quite the Keck W situation. King B-Day asks, would you move Cabochard to mid lane and how do you think he would fare versus the competition? Also, what did you think of Steelback's first game as Super and how do you think he will mesh with Vitality of having coached him a couple of years ago, back when you had Shook in the jungle? So I was not in that team when Shook was in the jungle. I'm not even sure if Shook ever played with Steelback because Steelback joined at a time where Shook was no longer in the team. So I don't even know if they played together. So you are smoking some good kush, my friend. Let's just focus on your first question. Cabochard, I think he has the right mindset, the right champion pool, the right mechanics to play mid lane. I think right now with Saken heavily underperforming, he's probably the weakest performing mid laner in the whole region. I think it's worth to experiment with that and bring in the Yopa Academy top lane. I don't know how Cabochard feels about learning mid lane in a new role, but this is all speculation, you know. But knowing that he plays Lucian, Jace, and plays all of these champions and won a lot of 1v1s against Jizuke in the mid lane, I'm hyped for it. So I think he could definitely learn and he could definitely lead from the mid lane role, but it's a massive undertaking and we shouldn't underestimate how hard it is to do that. Pedo Hunter asks, Perk said C9 would be 3rd to 5th place in LEC before the 2 losses. Where would you place C9 yourself based on the performances displayed so far? I think definitely they can compete for top 3. I think as the season progresses, I think Fnatic will be better than them as the season progresses. But honestly, Fnatic right now doesn't look too hot. It is hard to judge C9 because a lot of the competition they're facing is honestly trash. It's very easy to see that C9 are making the right moves, choosing the right fights, macro-wise playing good, Zen and Vulcan are smurfing. They are making the right decisions in terms of how they're playing the game, but they are faced with no freaking resistance at all. So even though I see a world where they could contest top 3, I also see a world where they lose to a Misfits, they lose to a Mad Lions, they lose to a Rogue, because right now the top of the table is quite stacked in Europe. Top 6, we have 6 very good teams. And these are all teams that could potentially beat C9, but the other way, it goes both ways. We also don't know how C9 would look practicing in Europe, because practicing in Europe would be much better for C9 than practicing in North America. I don't know what the hell kind of practice they're getting if they're scrimming, because that's probably god-awful for them, right? So we don't know how good they would be if they practice in Europe, and I still see a world, you know, where they could potentially beat the top 6, but also potentially lose to the top 6. I think they would be in playoffs for sure, and they would probably, you know, in the later stages of Spring Split, I think they would not be able to beat a Fnatic and G2 if the trajectory remains the same. But I think C9 is still a great team. I am holding back a little bit just because of the level of competition they're facing is honestly quite terrible. Okay, that concludes it. You can support me on the Patreon if you have a question that you're really burning for, you know, and you want to stand up above the rest, and you support me on my Patreon. I'm in the process of creating a competitive tier list for lower level teams. So meaning, you know, I do the competitive meta tier list, which is cool and all, but this is for pro level teams in the LEC and the LCS and the LCK and the Zimbabwean League, you know, all of those leagues. And the same thing doesn't apply at a lower level team. Let's say you have a bunch of diamond players, you're playing in a high school tournament against some other high school, I don't know, just pick whatever scenario you want. Then the priority looks very different, because I don't want you guys to be playing some high requiring mechanical champions that will just leave you in the dust because you're running it down, right? So stay away from that. If you are interested in this, just join in on the Patreon. It will be released hopefully next week. So thank you very much for watching. Join us on YamatoCannon. And I want to give a shout out to my Patreon, Retez, my boy. He's been supporting me on the Twitch channel a lot as well. So I appreciate you. Thank you very much. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.